Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Back to Brilliance podcast. We're your hosts, Henry and Joseph. Thanks for tuning in. We ask that you subscribe and leave a comment or review. Helps great people like you find our podcast. And with that, we're going to get into today's topic. We're talking about subconscious success and how to program your mind to execute automatically. In this episode, we're going to talk about your subconscious, how it runs your business more than your to-do list. So with that, guys, I want to go ahead and bring in our co-host, Joseph. Joseph, say what's up and take it away.
Hey everybody, how's it going? So today I wanted to talk about pretty much like speaking stuff into existence before it happens, right? Oftentimes, especially me, but I will try to make we'll make a goal, and then we're like, oh, it's so far away. But, that so far away feeling only makes us lose steam, right? Because if we're like, hey, I wanna own my first house, or I want to buy a house, we're like, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do this, I have to do that. All of those things will make you lose steam. So instead of that, what we do is, tell yourself, yeah, I've already bought that house. Like there's no real difference between then and now.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, guys, is that seeing it before, it happens, that's actually faith in action, right? So it's coming through that programming, of, visualizing it, till it's real, So that's the thing about, vision is like you want to put as much detail in it because that's what's going to bring it the results. So if, again, like Joseph's illustration, if you're going to get a house, okay, well, you might get a Cracker Jack house, one that needs a lot of repair. So you want to be specific when you're thinking about these things. Like, I want this type of a house with this type of layout and these things. And as that starts to happen, you'll start to see like things that come your way, and it really works. I've shared this story before. When I was driving my old clunker truck, I had a 87 Toyota pickup. It wasn't a clunker, but it was old, right? And I'm driving and I'm watching everybody fly by, their car has AC and they're jamming. And I just started visualizing a nice black car, AC, the music. And long behold, 6 months to a year later, I ended up driving that vehicle and I was blown away because I didn't recognize it at the time. You're just excited and caught up in the moment. But then as I'm driving this vehicle, one day I'm driving and I'm kind of like in that same area, in that little daze, just, daydreaming. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that I manifested this, So it does work, guys. That's the point.
Yeah, exactly. And so, that also works for who you want to be, right? I've heard of the phrase, be the person who you want to be now, right? So let's say you want to start exercising or lose weight, right? Well, you have to be that person who would put in the effort to lose weight. And that sounds pretty obvious, but, you can't become a different person, or you can't level up as a person if you're still working off of the same level that you were. So, for example, I've really been embodying the entrepreneur side of myself this year. So, now I'm starting to really level up as far as like what I'm imagining, right? I imagine myself with 10 clients, and what does that person look like if I'm serving 10 clients, right? And so, it can even go as far as your personality, or, what would someone who is more outgoing do right now, right? Kind of like bring in the aspects that you want right now. That way you can start practicing those aspects.
Absolutely. Which brings us to, the power of belief and expectation. You have to believe and expect that they're going to happen. You know what I mean? It's just like anything else. You need to expect the results before the evidence actually show up, and you do this by creating vision boards, things like that, writing down your little short-term and long-term goals, and seeing them to fruition when they come about, and you recognize, like I said, sometimes we just so caught up in the moment that we don't even recognize when it happens. A lot of times you hear a lot of these, rags to riches stories, like, well, when did you know you made it, and it's like, I didn't, one day I woke up and I realized like, oh man, I got a lot of money in the bank, but like Joseph's saying too, it's putting in that time, and acting as if it's real, at the moment. So expect the results before the evidence show up.
Exactly, and that's what Henry is saying about faith, right? That's where the faith is comes into plays, because you have faith in it, right? And almost be contagious with it, right? That way it builds momentum, right? I keep saying right, but you want to tell people like, I'm doing this already, even if you're not. I There was a Twitch streamer or a live streamer, and he would say, I'm a millionaire. I'm a millionaire. He would go up to people and be annoying about it. He'd be like, hey guys, I can't hear you. I'm a millionaire or whatever. And this was before he blew up. And then he blew up, and now he's making 12K a month, or I'm sorry, 12K a week. Wow. Right? And so, that really impresses on his subconscious mind that, hey, I'm that person. I'm being that person. And so, again, you could do it for your life, for things that you want in life, and who you want to be in life.
Absolutely. And that just comes down again, to those expectations, put those expectations, and then it's programming the subconscious mind, rewiring it for that automatic success. And that comes from, you can't get where you want, by the same thinking that got you to where you're at. So like, if you want to get to the next step, you have to step out, guys. Comfort is like, it's not a place to stay, so like, you got to keep growing and stuff like that. So programming that subconscious mind just helps you by expanding, listening to podcasts like this, other podcasts that motivate and inspire. It's not just fluff, it's real life stuff, we're sharing here, so definitely, you want to clarify your desire and your emotional alignments, you know what I mean? Get yourself in that place and see yourself, and what does it look like? You know what I mean? Like, what do you see yourself doing? I mean, okay, it's great if you get a lot of money, but what's the purpose of having all that money and then you're not doing anything with it? So the whole goal is to have more goals after that. Once you achieve and you make money, it's like, okay, well, what are you going to do with that money? Because you don't want to just have it in the bank. It does nothing for you, so you need to put it to work. But step one is just programming that subconscious mind.
I 1,000% agree. And that's something that I've heard recently was, people will say, oh, I want to make $1 million. But it's like, okay, what steps do I have to make for that $1 million? And then what am I going to do with that $1 million, right? Just to be like, oh, I have $1 million. Well, let's just say 600,000 of that would be in use. What are you going to do with that other 400,000, right? So, you have to really know each step of the process. That way you can really visualize, like, okay, like for me, right, I have a certain goal in mind for how much I want to make per month. So I'm like, okay, how many clients do I have to have per month? That way I can make that much per month. Okay, well, now that I know how many clients I want to have per month to make that amount of money, how many times do I have to outreach or reach out to people to get that amount, right? If we're doing like averages, right? And so, really dive deep into, okay, I want to do this, but how am I going to get there? And what does that look like? Again, maybe you want to buy a house. Okay, well, where do you want to buy that house? What are things that you value in that house, right? And that way you can kind of like already know what you're looking for whenever you are going to buy a house. And also, again, to turn it more into the interpersonal thing, what do you want to be, or who you want to be, and how do you embody, or how do you plan on embodying that? So, again, for example, I want to be more open to people. I want to be a very open presence and like very inviting. Well, what do I have to do to be more inviting to people?
Right. And that's the thing, to be more inviting is just, making yourself available, right? So, and that only comes by, again, having that refueling process for yourself. So that's what we're talking about, subconscious mind. I know Joseph well enough to know that he spends a lot of time, doing research, studying, and implementing these subconscious rewiring, so that way he can give it out, and that's what we do through this outlet, through this podcast, is just share the stuff that we're reading and, giving it out and in an audio form, because we know a lot of you guys are on the go. So maybe this can bless you, and help you, so just taking that visualization, of the outcomes that you want, and the partnerships of the people you want to be, whether it's, in work relation, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, like you have to really like hone in on what it is you want and let the subconscious, do its thing, and it'll come about, so that's like the daily reprogramming thoughts too, is like guard your mind, like equity, what you consume, it shapes your mental dashboard, and that's very, very true. It's like your eyes and your ears are the windows to your soul. So the stuff that you're putting in, if you put in junk, you're going to just be a junkyard, right? If you put in good stuff, you're going to, produce good. So like begets like, it's a universal law of reaping and sowing. Whatever you plant, you will reap. So that's a true fact, so, and just remember, repetition, it creates the belief, and belief directs your performance.
Exactly. And, I kind of glossed over this point, but you want to do that repetition in the hypnagogic, I learned this for today, state. Basically, it's, right before you fall asleep, like that little window before you're about to fall asleep, and the moment whenever you first wake up, right? You really want to just like repeat to yourself. And this is something that I've practiced before that I've kind of fallen out of touch with, but like, say your affirmations until you fall asleep. Kind of like, whenever people would say like, oh, just count sheep to fall asleep, count your blessings that we fall asleep to that, right? And then you can wake up and be like, hey, I'm thankful for this or whatever, right? Prime your brain to be in a positive frame of mind, or I would say or a or in a state where you're receptive to knowing that you're capable of good things, or whatever the case may be, right? So like, I'll wake up and I'll just say thank you for or I'm thankful to be awake again, or I'm thankful to be blessed with another day, right? So it's all about repetition. So there was also another thing I would do where before sleep I would look at my goal card, and I would read my goal card 3 times before bed, and then I would read it whenever I woke up. That way I ended my day with my goal, and I woke up to my goal, right? It really helps program your subconscious mind that way.
Absolutely. And that's the thing in life, guys. There's only 2 things that really, come about, right? Faith or fear. So if you go to bed and you're worried and you're anxious and you're thinking about it, then you're going to sleep in that fear-based mentality. And when you wake up, if you don't wake up with gratitude and giving thanks, or your affirmations or prayers or whatever it is, just giving thanks, then you're already giving into that fear, and your day will start out like that. So that's a subconscious mind thing that, because you've been doing it for so long, so it's time to change it, and try the faith thing, and see how it works. And it's not a religious thing. Faith is just seeing things that before they happen, and that's the definition of it. So it's just putting in the repetition, and it's going to help to create that belief, and it's going to strengthen your faith, and then you're going to see the performance come, so, and then, controlling the mechanism, not forcing it, you're not trying to force things to happen, because when you do, we know that, it just gets away, right? So it's like when you're in the flow, that's what they call it. When you're in that flow state, things just seem to come a little bit easier, when you're not, and you're in frantic mode and you're in fear base, things seem to be just like going away, it's like the harder you try, the further it gets, and then when you just finally, either you're put in a position where, you can't do anything and you just have to expect the outcome, or you just say, okay, I'm just going to trust the process, and things start to work for you, so don't try to control it, don't try to force it. Just get in the flow state.
Exactly. And this is something that I was told recently, whenever we say don't try to force it, that's control, right? You're trying to control the outcome. You're not trying to control the outcome. You're certain of the outcome. I want to give everyone this mental image, right? So what if I told you you were going to win the lottery in 7 days or in a week, right? In a week from now, you're going to win the lottery. 1000% true. It's set in stone. You're going to win the lottery in 7 days. How would you behave? How would you act if you knew for a fact that you were going to win the lottery, right? That is how you want to frame your goal. I'm winning the lottery. I've already won the lottery. It is set in stone that I'm going to win the lottery, right? And so that is how you really want to frame whatever it is that you're trying to do. That way, you're not forcing it. You're like, oh, well, what if? Or I have to win the lottery. No, you've already won the lottery. The money is coming to you. And, I kind of want to just pivot to the next point, which is feeling is the secret. I'm sure there's a book about that. I believe that's Neville Goddard, explicitly. But if feeling is the secret, right? So if you can't feel your goal, if you don't feel inspired, if you don't feel driven from your goal, you're not going to push for it. But if you can feel that feeling of I'm going to win the lottery or I've won the lottery, you're not going to push to continue doing or going down that path.
Yeah, and it's a feeling, right? That's what we are. We're emotional creatures. We go by feeling. A lot of time we try not to, but we do. Whatever it is, somebody does something wrong to us, our feeling might be anger, or whatever. So like what we're talking about here, though, the feeling is a secret, is feeling that already sense of accomplishment, knowing that it's gonna happen because I'm putting in the work. You know what I mean? And again, it comes back to planting those seeds. And the one thing about planting a seed is it will grow. It will produce something, but you have to, continue to nurture it and see it, till it brings results, So the emotion, it makes ideas like magnetic, when you have that feeling and you're energized, it just pours out of you. Like people just know what you're about, you don't have to go and tell them like, hey, this person's about this. It's like, no, that emotion, because they're just so, they feel it so deep down in their soul that it just oozes out and people can see it, and it bridges the unseen with the seen.
Exactly. And, you can also try to do this. This is something that I've really been trying to experiment with, but create like daily rituals. That way it kind of brings you back to that point or that mindset of I've won the lottery. Not that I'm going to win the lottery, not that I want to win the lottery, not that I need to win the lottery, but I have won the lottery, right? And so things that I would do or that I've experimented with is I'll play a specific song and then I will sit in a specific spot in my room. So that way, whenever I sit down and play that song, then I already know what I want to do, which I'll say my affirmations, right? Or I'll talk about my goal to myself, or I'll visualize my goal. You kind of want to have like a little routine. That way you kind of snap back into like, okay, yeah, that's right. I won the lottery. I did fulfill my dream, right? It is inevitable. And, again, the repetition of that will really, really sink into your brain, because let's say you only look at your goal or think about your goal once a year, New Year's resolution time, right? We all set a goal at the new year and then we're like, oh, whatever, month 6, month 7, whatever, right? It doesn't really matter. But if you continuously and consistently remind yourself, I'm going to win the lottery. Oh, I'm sorry, I have won the lottery. And I'm doing all of these things just to continue putting yourself back into that mode of I've won, I've achieved it.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. It's just building that rhythm, you know what I mean, so to speak. It's just kind of like, again, getting in that flow state. So like Joseph said, and he goes and puts that song on, whatever his track is, it puts him in that state of mind, so that way he can be, ready to say his affirmations and stuff like that. So find a spot in your home, you know what I mean, or in your car, wherever, you get your little privacy, and do this, build that repetition, that consistency, build that visualization, see it happening, because it's real, guys. You know what I mean? Like it really comes to, and brings about the desires of your heart, when you constantly focus, so, that's just kind of how things come about, it's so, the true transformation, it means dissolving the old self concepts that, limit your growth, So if you're stuck and stagnant right now and you don't feel like you're growing, I've been there many a times, and sometimes I try other things, and, I learned this: he who chases many rabbits catches none, right? I said it 1,000 times, and guess who keeps chasing many rabbits? You know what I mean? So I hang on to the one rabbit, but I still do the same thing. So, but that's just part of the old, self concept. So like, I'm still work in progress. I'm still learning these things, and I'm just sharing and being transparent with you guys, because that's how we're going to grow, guys, is by sharing and helping one another, So nobody has it all figured out. And those that do, nobody wants to be around them, because they're a know-it-all. So, the thing is that taking this time and getting into that flow state and building that consistency is going to help you to see things come about for yourself.
I really agree with what you said, and I just want to go back on what you said, and like Henry just said, right? Take full ownership of what you're doing, right? Don't blame your neighbor, don't blame society, don't blame, the system. I mean, you very well can, but these are all going to absolve you from your actual control that you have. And so, I had a conversation with a family member recently, and they're like, "Oh, well, the system is keeping you down." I'm like, "No, I'm keeping myself down. At least that's how I view it, right? I'm not a millionaire, or I'm not, 100,000 heir or whatever. I'm not earning a great living, but I know I'm going to earn a great living." And so I'm like, I'm the one keeping myself down, right? So it's all about taking your power and running with it. And I kind of want to translate what we were saying about the inevitability. So that's kind of why college at one point was really, really good for a job. Was you were promised at the very end that you would get a job, like you would get a job in your career path, and that you would, right? You have 4 years of learning about it. You have 4 years of building your skills. And then at the end of it, your subconscious mind knew that you would get a job. So then it would be like, okay, well, I'm already employed, right? If I continue this degree, if I get my degree, I know I'm going to get employed, right? And so that was a very, that was very effective. But now, the things may be a little bit different nowadays. But again, that's why college for a while was so effective. Was so many people would program in their subconscious mind that by doing this, I'm going to get a job.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, you look at it today. I mean, this is where entrepreneurship is definitely, it's flourished over, the last, 50 years plus, 100 years, whatever it is, but it even more now, because opportunities are presenting themselves even that much more. I mean, we could see just with the shutdown, a lot of people that depend, again, they went to college, they did this, and they got the job, and they're stuck in these things. So you want to, maybe you're there, and you want to try a different way. This is kind of what we're sharing today. The entrepreneur is a creator, and using these tools to reshape your reality, So act as if it's real. We're talking about the power of belief and expectation. You got to believe it if it's going to happen, So like Joseph said, it's not a matter if, it's a matter of when. And you just have to do that by staying consistent, So that's programming your subconscious, rewiring it for the automatic success, daily programming, Again, that just comes from finding that time to, whether it's to be, gratitude journal, just getting in that flow state, so to speak. Don't force it, just let it come to you, let everything work, and that's going to happen by just, that feeling, just of it's coming. Don't know when, but it's coming, and you have to inspire yourself and listen to podcasts like this to get motivated, to be inspired, and reach out, definitely. You're not alone. There's a lot of people on this journey. That's what Back to Brilliance is all about, is, sometimes we fall off the track and we just got to get back to our brilliant place, so, and with that, I want to just bring Joseph back on if he has any closing thoughts or ideas.
Yeah. Again, like Henry just said, right? This is what the podcast is about, is to link people together and build a true community of people, of like-minded people, who are tired of doing everything alone. If you're an entrepreneur, maybe you don't have a community, maybe you don't have people to outreach or reach out to about this type of stuff. That's what we made it for, and that's what we made our community for. That way we have community support, as well as weekly structure to help you stay focused and follow through. That way you can achieve your goals. So that's at backtobrilliance.com. If you scroll down to the community tab, you'll be linked up with like-minded people like you.
Well said. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning into our podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment and a review. It helps great people like you find our podcast. And with that, we're out. Till the next time, stay blessed.
Bye-bye.